Welcome to Right on Track, brought to you by the Publishing Club of Laguna Woods. I am your host, Dianna Bolen. Here we are, February 2025. Seems like an auspicious number for a year. I never imagined living in the year 2025. And here we are. Sounds kind of futuristic. And a quarter of this century already gone. Yeesh. All the more reason to get going on what's important to you. Did you make New Year's resolutions? How are you doing with that? If you have already given up on your New Year's resolutions, we've got answers for you. Never fear, there is still hope. Still interested in improving some aspect of your life or learn how to make a habit stick? This show is for you. I'd like to introduce you to the best-selling book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It would be great to have Mr. Clear on the show, but he is a very busy guy. His book, Atomic Habits, has been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 260 weeks. That's 5 years. It was released in October 2018, sold over 20 million copies, and it was translated into over 60 languages. It is a non-fiction self-help book that focuses on the science of habit formation. My problem with some self-help books is that they're just somebody's opinion, maybe a famous person, and a lot of hype, very little science, a celebrity promotion. Like, I don't really care about Oprah's favorite pajamas. Atomic Habits, on the other hand, incorporates scientific literature as well as introduces a relatively new concept. That concept is how small, incremental, 1% changes can lead to significant improvements over time. You're trying to figure out just exactly what this is. Well, for example, if you eliminate that second helping at dinner every day, you will lose weight. If you walk 10 extra steps each day, you will reach 10,000 steps in 3 years. I like several things about Atomic Habits. First of all, James Clear has a thorough grasp of the field of behavior and habit change. Believe it or not, much of the relevant research on habit and change was done in the last century. I was pleasantly surprised to see a study from 1908 by Yerkes and Dobson that was included in this book, because some things about human nature just do not change. This study is important because it helps explain why anxious or bored people don't learn very well. I'll explain about this study, and it is relevant to you. Essentially, the study shows that there's a sweet spot for learning and behavior change. That's right. If you are bored or not motivated, you are unlikely to succeed. You don't pay attention. You're uninterested. If you're anxious, afraid to fail, you will likely fail. Anxiety blocks new learning. So if you're anxious, you're going to result to old habits and thoughts. So it's good to be in that sweet spot, remembering that if the task is too easy or too difficult, your chances are diminished for succeeding. Being in the middle zone of difficulty and motivation is just right for habit change. It's important to learn how to motivate yourself and set reasonable goals. I will stress this as we go on. But first, let's look at my New Year's resolution. I planned to drink a large glass of water first thing in the morning. Seems manageable, right? I didn't succeed, but I didn't give up. Atomic Habits reminded me of the Premack principle. David Premack, 1965, wrote about pairing a more preferred activity with a less desirable one to increase the likelihood of success of developing a new habit. Okay, now that may not quite make sense, but the point is that there is a way to increase the likelihood that I will drink water in the morning. Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, calls it stacking or temptation bundling. Now, typically in new books, old concepts are rebranded, if you will, but it's still a reliable old concept with a new name. So let's take my preferred activity. What is my preferred activity? Well, it's drinking my morning coffee. So I pair that with my habit goal, which is a large glass of water. I add a cue, which is the scent of the brewing coffee. I can just imagine it even now. So I have this association of a pleasant experience of coffee with the neutral experience of drinking a glass of water. All right. Now this is the important part. My agreement with myself is to not drink my morning coffee until I've had my big glass of water. That's a pretty attainable goal. The joy of the coffee motivates me to drink the water. The smell of the coffee will eventually be a signal for me to drink the water first. And you know what? It's working. Now, that's a good example of how to create a good habit. In the book, James stresses certain behaviors that help a good habit to become a habit. First of all, and this depends on you, the idea is to track your habit so that you have a before and after measure. People may do that if they're trying to lose weight. They step on the scale every day and record what their weight is. Some people don't like to do that. That's fine. But with a tracking system, you are actually more likely to stick to your goal of changing your habit. The bad news is the research also shows that most people do not track habits for more than a couple of weeks. However, tracking a current habit does help you keep to that habit. The other is creating a clear written intention. So I will drink water every morning before my coffee. Or I will not eat potato chips. We'll get more to the negative habit change in a little bit. Also, remember the Premack principle, which is you pair something you want to do or enjoy doing with something you're learning to add to your repertoire. For example, my coffee in the morning with the big glass of water. Okay. Also, something else I've done is manage the environmental cues. So before I go to bed at night, I fill that glass with water, and I have it sitting at my desk where I drink my coffee. That's what's called an environmental cue. So it allows the environment to push me toward my goal. Because anything that makes it more difficult to achieve my goal is going to get in the way of habit development. So if I, for example, have to go find the glass, pour the water, I may get distracted, as we sometimes do, and I forget to drink the water. The other thing that you can do is to make it attractive to attain the new habit. And that may be done by self-talk. It may be done by some other kind of reward system. You get to choose what it is you decide will be attractive for you. And sometimes it's just how you think about it. Oh, if I drink this water, my skin will be clear, or it'll be toward my goal of drinking so many ounces a day. Something that people often forget about habit change and is stressed in this book is make it easy. Make it easy. So many times people have lofty goals, especially around the new year. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to return all my emails first thing in the morning. You know what? It isn't going to happen. We don't work that way. And James Clear talks about, I call it chunking. I guess that's an old way of referring to it. But it's that 1% that you look for in a positive change. Okay, so you make your goals or your habits manageable. I've worked with one person who had a bad habit of spending hours and hours online. And so this person felt it was just totally unmanageable to stop doing that. So we didn't stop doing that. We just tracked how many hours a day, and believe it or not, we set a goal to decrease the amount of time on the internet by 1 minute each day. Now that would be consistent with the atomic habits, atomic being small. You just try to do something that's easy and yet is attainable and makes a difference in the long run. We so often are looking for changes that happen instantaneously, and instantaneous changes do not last when it comes to behavior change. Another thing that's helpful for people trying to make a positive change is to make it satisfying. Now, with respect to the glass of water, I may actually take the time to savor that drink and think about how good it feels to sip that water. Now, let's talk about breaking a bad habit. Slightly different. And let's just take the example of alcohol. For some people, alcohol can be a problem. I'm not saying you have to be a drunk or an alcoholic or have a DUI. I'm just saying that based on current research, drinking is not so good for us. Okay. So these days, many people engage in what's called the sobriety challenge. The sobriety challenge is a goal to drink no alcohol in the month of January. This being February, if you've done the sobriety challenge, how did you do? Some people do dry January, but others do damp January, which means they drink very little. So how does somebody go about reducing their alcohol intake or eliminating it altogether? When we talk about cueing, and cues are, again, environmental cues, things that set you up for success or failure. People, places, and things, and this comes from Alcoholics Anonymous, are the big cues for alcohol consumption. So, for example, if your best friends are heavy drinkers and you're trying to eliminate alcohol, it might be worth it to not spend as much time with those people, or have a backup plan such that you drink non-alcoholic beverages. I've heard some people talk to the bartender and say, I don't want to address this issue with my friends, but when I order a drink, would you bring me soda and lime? Other things are to avoid places. You could still get together with your friends, but not at a bar. You may go for a walk instead. And things, in this case, would be alcohol, those bottles hanging around your house. So eliminating those things can help with your goal. And it doesn't mean that you have to let go of your friends. And in fact, here in the woods, I find people incredibly supportive. There aren't a lot of people who say, oh, why aren't you drinking today? They just accept that you don't want to. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So another subtle thing about any habit that you're trying to eliminate is stop yourself when you start anticipating the pleasurable results of the bad habit. Now, there is a whole other literature out there about dopamine, which is the pleasure chemical in your brain, and that chemical increases even when you think about having a drink or think about doing something pleasurable. Usually, then, that acts as a cue for you to have a drink. Okay, so this cueing again comes in as an important factor. So we're talking about what your mind does, the cues in the environment, as two important factors of changing a habit. So you thinking about having a drink is not a good thing. If you find yourself thinking about those pleasurable results, just switch your mind to some other thinking, some other thought. Now, this goes back to other work that I've suggested people do, which is on mindfulness, noticing that you're anticipating that drink. And you don't really notice things unless you've done some mindfulness work. The other thing that is suggested by James Clear in the book is question the belief that the bad habit will in some way be good for you. You know, that you're suffering by giving up this bad habit. For example, the thought that alcohol will settle you down, make you feel less anxious. Well, it does make you feel less anxious, but it also makes you more vulnerable to anxiety. It's kind of like the story of Dumbo and the Magic Feather, if you've ever seen that animation. So Dumbo believed he could fly, but only if he had the magic feather holding it in his trunk. And one day, Dumbo's way up on the top of a ladder, ready to jump. He jumps and loses the feather, and he's frantic because his belief is he cannot fly without the feather. As it turns out, he could fly just fine. And that's what people find out when they give up a bad habit. In this case, we're talking about alcohol. You will not feel anxious momentarily, yes, but over time you'll realize that no, that wasn't helpful. Alcohol was not helpful at all. The other thing you can do is to read our articles on the bad effects of alcohol, because there are plenty of them out there. They're still coming out, and some of the research tends to say that women are actually more susceptible to cancer as a result of drinking alcohol than are men. Other things you can do with any habit is make it difficult to execute the habit. For example, I love ice cream. If I have ice cream in the house, I'm going to eat ice cream. But if I don't have alcohol in the house, I'm not going to go out to the store to buy some. So if you don't have alcohol in the house, it's unlikely that you're going to go out to buy a bottle of alcohol. And encouraging introspection, if you're the kind of person that has to go out and buy ice cream or buy alcohol because you just need it, that's a bad sign, and it's time to look into how important that habit has become to you. Other things you can do is tell yourself, explore the benefits of not drinking. And truly, there are benefits of not drinking. You will sleep better, your weight will go down, you may feel more clear-headed, any number, and you will save money. Another popular misconception about habit change. I've heard many people talk about, it takes 3 weeks to change a habit, it takes 3 months to change a habit. Well, actually, based on what James Clear says, it takes about 80 to 90 days to change a habit. But new habit formation is based on frequency, not time. What that means is, like with my water drinking example, I need 80 to 90 mornings of drinking water first thing in the morning in order for that to become a habit. So I don't count the days when I skip my morning water. Make sense? Some final words, and I have quite a few of them. The only way to change a habit is on your own. It's your habit. It's your behavior. It's your mind. You must work with those things with persistence. Now, books help, information and inspiration help, but the key is you. You are at the center of this. Now, some people have, I think most of us do, have what I might call the unruly child. But I don't want to. I really want whatever it is. That is still your inner work. There's books out about your internal family, and one of your members is the child who just wants what they want. So learning to navigate with that inner child and providing reassurance or postponement or distraction are things you can do. Another thing that's helpful to change habits is be clear on why you are changing the habit. And you might have to revisit that frequently. So for example, you've made it to the gym for a week and then you're like, I really don't like it there for any number of reasons. You need to revisit why you are exercising. And so the why you are exercising, for example, or the why you're choosing your habit change may give you a cue and a clue to how you want to do it differently. Maybe you don't want to go to the gym. Maybe you just want to walk outside. That still qualifies for changing your habit, namely getting more exercise. Also, be honest with yourself about the reasons. Are your reasons consistent with your values and your abilities? So if I were going to set a goal, I've got a great story for you. So at the Equestrian Center, I love the Equestrian Center, there's a class now on vaulting. What is vaulting? Vaulting is when people get on top of the horse and balance and do tricks, not as in riding, but as in standing up, or can you imagine it at our age, like using your hands to lift your legs up in the sky? Now, if I set a goal to do vaulting, I would fail because it's just out of my range of abilities. And frankly, it's not consistent with my values. I don't like broken bones. I don't like falling off horses. So you really need to put away any aspirations that are inconsistent with what's really possible for you and who you are today. Something I've mentioned before is reducing your goals down until they're easy to achieve, because then you are setting yourself up for success. Okay, so one success leads to another success, and then you build momentum. People don't like to start slow. They like to go right into it, have this feeling, oh, wow, I'm doing X and Y and Z, but you know what happens. You end up tired. You just give up. So understand that slow is the way to go. The turtle wins the race. Also, track your successes. It doesn't take long to just put a little check mark on a calendar or, even in your phone calendar, anything that then you can look back and go, wow, I've been doing this for 6 weeks now. Then there is also your self-talk. If you are a kind of person that things are never good enough, you're perfectionistic, you have to find a way to not indulge that. Because you can just as easily, as they say, the glass is half full or half empty. So if I've had 6 weeks of achieving my goal, I can say, well, it's still short of what I wanted to do, or I can say, wow, that was great, keep it up, because you are your best cheerleader. Find a way to show up for yourself again and again. That is so important. Don't kid yourself that people who have achieved greatness just naturally have talent. Whether it's a violin player or a weightlifter, there are days when they go and they are just bored and don't feel like doing it. But they show up for themselves again and again, and that's so important. Finally, and most importantly, accomplishing goals leads to greater life satisfaction and happiness. A life without goals is a life without purpose, and a life without purpose is an unhappy life. This concludes another episode of Right on Track, brought to you by the Publishing Club of Laguna Woods. You can see this show right here on TV6, Mondays at 10:30 a.m. and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Thanks to the staff here at TV6. May you follow your dreams with passion, persistence, and faith. See you again soon.